There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to Positive Talk, everybody. My name is Kevin, and Brichelle is right there, and she's. I have to congratulate Brichelle because she's a little under the weather, but she's fighting through it as best she can. But if she disappears from time to time, that would be why, is that she's off coughing her head off somewhere and stuff. So, but in any event, Brichelle, would you like to introduce our guest, because I have no hope of pronouncing her name correctly?
I believe that you could get it eventually, that is. We have Tewabech Genet Stewart here with us today. This woman, let me tell you, she is a child welfare disruptor, truth teller, abolitionist, daughter of missionaries, survivor of war, mother by adoption, and is here to tell us a different story. So welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, and hopefully I don't have a coughing fit. My voice is not 100%, but I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
You sound like it's 100%. Come on.
I kind of sound like a jazz singer, which is pretty cool. I wish I could sing. Unfortunately, I can't.
Yeah, and Brichelle said the same thing, that when she's got when her throat is a little scratchy and stuff, that she sings with much more character.
Yeah, I tell you what, I either sing a lot better or a lot worse. So it just depends on the day.
Now, we are going to talk about, you have done a lot of things in your life, one of which is you've worked in the Child Protective Services system and all of that in Florida for 20 years, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. I am a Florida girl. I have lived my entire life, adult life in Florida. My parents are retired missionaries from Liberia, West Africa, and that's where I was born and raised. I graduated from high school over there, came back to Florida after high school, went to Florida State, go Noles, and I've been in Florida ever since. And I entered the child welfare industry in 1999 as an investigator with the Department of Children and Families, and stayed in the system for 22 years. I've been out of the system now for about 4 years. I'm just really grateful to be here and talk about all the things tied to child welfare and children. They're our most vulnerable, and I just love the work that I do working with children and supporting their families.
Now, yesterday, we had an opportunity to talk to somebody that is a foster care parent, and they've been doing that for a very long time. And we talked about the fact, and I think, and I want to know, first of all, if you agree with me, but I think our foster care system and our child protective services systems in many ways are completely and irreparably broke. If I could say that word, that would be even better. Broken. Let me put it that way.
Yes, I agree.
And because they're horribly broken, we need to change a lot about them. We need to fund them appropriately. We need to make sure that they're all done right. But you have an interesting take on it, and I'd love to hear your interesting take. What would it be like if we had a group of 5-year-olds decide how we were going to make it all work?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things I need to share. One, I am a daughter of Pentecostal missionaries. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm not a very religious person, but I am very spiritual. And I also believe that God does not fit in one box. So I am one open to all faiths, all walks. God is much bigger than our mind can imagine. But I do reference the Bible and the teachings of Jesus just because of my upbringing. That's what I know best. I also believe that if you are a person of faith, that should dictate how you live your life day to day. My dad, when he used to preach, he used to talk about Sunday Christians. And, you don't just practice Christianity between 10 and 11:30 on Sunday morning. You practice it all day, every day. And I am a proponent of the separation of church and state, by the way. But since we do identify as a Christian nation, I do challenge that in my writings, in my blogs, about whether or not our system truly reflects what the Bible says about how we treat each other, how we treat children, how we treat the most vulnerable. So I bring all of my experiences, my faith, into my belief about the child welfare system. Now, it's interesting, Kevin, and I'm curious, the person that you interviewed, there is a continuum in child welfare. You have the reformists. They believe that we are capable of making the current system work. And then you have the other extreme, that is the abolitionists, that believe that this system cannot work in its current form and needs to just go away altogether. I am on the abolitionist side, primarily because after spending 22 years in the system, there are a lot of truths that I have uncovered because I believe that I could have changed the system from the inside out. I genuinely believe that. And in 2020, I had an epiphany. It was really after the murder of George Floyd, where I really started looking at the child welfare system, the history, and what it was designed to do. And the truth is, it's foundationally flawed. And that is why, because results don't lie, right? But that is why child welfare systems, no matter what state you're in, they struggle, because there are some underlying assumptions that feed the system that they're just not true. So that is one of the reasons why, the main reason why I believe that we need to abolish the current system as is and replace it with something that is really based on Christian principles. So I have developed a 7-step framework, and maybe we could talk about it later on another show. I don't want to go into gory details about it right now, but because of my experience within the system, I do believe if we had a system that was patterned after the biblical principles, it would be something that would work, where we would see healing, love, restoration. The current system right now is about coercion, separation, punishment, and control. And that is one of the reasons why we don't see children and families thriving in this system. And I would go one step further to say many of the people, the professionals who work within the system, aren't thriving either. It's one where oftentimes, now granted, all of my professional experience is within the state of Florida, so I can speak pretty boldly about what's happening here, but I do believe I can generalize on what's happening in other states based on some of the news media, some of the stories that I've read about just a turnover, the system becoming more and more overwhelmed, children sleeping in offices, in hotels, children not really getting what they need. So I do believe some of what we've seen in Florida has translated in what we have seen in other states.
Now, each state operates it under the federal guidelines. Would that be correct?
Yes. So there's federal legislation, and each state, they have a little bit of flexibility within the federal guidelines. And there are people from the federal government that come in and they monitor the activities of the states. And I shared a blog. I think there's a new person at the Administration of Children and Families. They're trying to do some new type of performance improvement plan, because not a state has never passed the federal audit ever. So at some point, we have to go back and revisit the original hypotheses that drove the system. And I just want to say to those who are in the system, I'm coming at this from a place of love and no judgment. None of us alive right now created this system. So this is not a personal attack on anyone. And I'm a social worker. I'm a tree hugger at heart. I do believe whoever created some of these systems, they were well-intentioned at the time. So, but at the end of the day, we have to see where we are. What do we know about some of the underlying assumptions? For example, that pulling children away from their parents is actually beneficial for the child. I mean, there's no research, there's no science, there's nothing to back that up, but it is a practice that we continue to do. especially within those critical years, 0 to 5 of bonding and attachment, that is the worst time to separate a child from the primary caregiver, but the child welfare system continues to do it over and over daily. So I love the idea of challenging ourselves to think about, what would children choose? Since we do claim that we are child welfare and we say we're child protection and we're all about the child, what would children say if they actually could give an opinion about how we treat them? And I love let's talk about 5-year-olds. What would the system look like if 5-year-olds were in charge? Because that is a great age. Kids ask a ton of questions at that age. They're very honest, right? Sometimes we as the adults have to be like, hey, don't ask that question. But children are very honest. They're fair. They'll be like, I could just picture a 5-year-old saying, why are you taking me from my mom if she doesn't have housing? Could you just give her a house? Or why are you taking me from my mom because she doesn't have food? Could you just give her food? I mean, I think 5-year-olds would really challenge us to create a system that really works for children.
Interesting.
And I've got to ask you, because the child welfare system is designed, according to what I've read and what they say, is designed to protect the children from situations that are detrimental to their health and well-being. But that's not always the case, is it?
Well, this is where you talk about power. Who has the power to decide what's detrimental? And Kevin, all you need to do is be a part of a mom's group on Facebook, and you would know it's not that cut and dry when it comes to what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And those of us who are close to the system, familiar with the system, parents who have been impacted by the system, they do understand how, I like to use the word delusional because it really is delusional, how delusional the system is. But what I've seen is that the public at large, they have no idea. They really think that this system, we're saving children from death. There's all these broken bone cases and horrible sex abuse cases. And yes, there are those cases, very few and far between. Nationally, if you look at the trends, you have about 80% of children being removed for what's considered neglect maltreatments. So these are not the shaken baby, horrible broken bone cases. And you could argue that a lot of the neglect maltreatments are tied to poverty. We know that nationally, Black and Indigenous children are disproportionately brought into the system. They're disproportionately separated from their families. And we also know, based on the truth of the Bible and other faiths, that we are all of equal value. So unless you believe there's something inherently flawed with Black and Indigenous parents, right? Which we know that's not true. All of us, we are of equal value. And we also know that children are gifted to families. So if we have "In God We Trust" printed on our money, because that's what we say, we trust God in all things, and we don't understand his divine wisdom as to why children are gifted to certain parents or not. I mean, we understand the birds and bees and how they get here. But we also know that,
some of us understand that. Some of us are not really. That's how that happens. No.
Yep. But God, in his wisdom, gives parents children. So we have our government coming in and saying, "Oh God, you didn't get that right. You didn't pick the right set of parents. So we're going to put little Johnny over here and give him a new set of parents." Right? It's very arrogant of the system and very arrogant of the government to interfere with that divine order. So I believe our role as a system would be to support the parents that have the children. And in the event that the parents are unable, there are always going to be situations where parents cannot care for their children for whatever reason. Those parents are part of extended family network. how can we help support the extended family network as opposed to plucking that child out of that family and placing them in an entirely new family? Sometimes there are children that never get family. We terminate the parent's parental rights, which is the civil death penalty. For all intents and purposes, those parents are taking off of the child's birth certificate as if I adopted my son through foster care. On his birth certificate, I am listed as his mother. He met me at the age of 7. He knows I did not birth him, right? So there was, when I went through the adoption process, I got a new birth certificate, new social security number for him. I am legally his mother. And that is what happens in this system. We erase the parents that actually gave birth to the child, and we give these children to strangers. And sometimes the children don't get adopted at all, and they get released into the world as legal orphans. Some of them find their way back to their biological family. Some of them are able to make that reconnection with their biological family. Some of them are just turned loose at the age of 18. Some states have some version of extended foster care, trying to hold on to the child, maybe till the child turns 21, 24. But either way, we produce children, if they don't get adopted, that have no parents. It's unbelievable, Kevin, what we do. And on top of that, the parents that adopt the child, they get income until the child turns 18 through maintenance adoption subsidy. Many people,
I want to talk more about that. We need to take a quick break. And when we come back, a couple things. I want to talk about the difference between the New Testament and the Old Testament.
Uh-oh, you'll make me go back to Sunday school.
I am. And the difference between what was taught on the Sermon on the Mount and what was taught in Deuteronomy and Leviticus and those things, because they're completely different when you look at them. And I for one believe in what Jesus taught. And in the Old Testament, that was not necessarily in line with what some folks are talking about when they talk about biblical principles. And I think we need to be kind to people and take care of people and take care of people who need our help and not throw them away. And so I want to talk about that before I get on my soapbox.
All right.
So we will be right back in just about a minute and a half, a minute and 2 seconds. Here's another point to ponder from Positive Talk Radio. What is the easiest thing to justify? It is a small transgression, the one no one will ever see, no one will ever know. The tiny exaggeration on the expense report, the extra minute you took on your lunch break, the packaging you tossed in the wrong recycle bin because it was closer. In those moments, the question isn't, will I get caught? The question is, will I know? It isn't about avoiding punishment. It's a silent agreement you make with yourself when you choose to do the right thing, to return the wallet, to fix the mistake, to respect the empty space. You aren't impressing the world. You're earning your own respect. That small choice, made entirely in private, is how you build a life you never have to look away from. The only audience that matters is you. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin, and Brochelle's right there, and Genet Stewart is with us because I can't pronounce your first name, but that's beside the point. But a couple of things. First of all, I agree with you 100%. I do not understand how the system works. We had a gentleman on yesterday. He helped us understand how it works in Washington, which is a little bit different than it is in some states. But I believe that we, as Christians or people who would choose to be Christians, because I know some Christians who say, why is there a Christmas tree every time I go to church? And things. So it's important to, because there is a difference. If you look at Matthew 25 in the Sermon on the Mount and what Jesus taught, that we need to be kind to everybody, and we need to take care of those that are less than men. We need to make sure everybody's fed. We've got 40 million kids in this country that go to bed hungry every night. That is obscene. That is just crazy. And we also have a system by which we take kids, and correct me if I'm wrong, take kids away from their families and give them to a stranger or a series of strangers over the course of time, and then we pay these strangers to take care of them, and we don't help the mom or the dad, who are the biological foundation of what our society should be. Have I got that right so far?
Yes, you got it right. And I agree, Kevin, with you. And I've been challenged with us identifying as a Christian country, and honestly, just thinking about some of what I've seen being done in the name of Christianity. There have been times that I'm like, really, it makes me want to change my religion, because I'm like, this is not the Jesus I learned about in Sunday school. But you really can twist scriptures around to justify anything. I mean, religion has been used to justify slavery and a lot of other negative things. So you have to be very careful about cherry picking scripture. But one of the things that in the New Testament, the teachings of Jesus in Luke, where there's a parable where he says, to whom much is given, much is required. Yep. And when I think of that, I think about the systems and who is getting the resources. So like in the child welfare system, you have systems that receive millions and millions of dollars, and they give themselves a pass. It could be like I'm in Hillsborough County, Florida, and we've had a lot of different transitions, like new agencies coming in, and they'll be like, we have a lot of turnover, our caseloads are high. There's an expectation that they receive grace. Caseworkers are stressed out. Well, families go through the same thing. Families go through transitions. There could be a mother that's in a toxic relationship and she's trying to transition out. Parents don't receive the same level of grace. If they violate a safety plan, if they do something that someone else disagrees with, they're held to a higher standard. And that is not aligned with scripture. Those of us, and I also personally, because I was born and raised in Liberia, West Africa, and my parents invested, I was able to go to private schools, and they invested in my education. It has given me a different perspective. We know in this country, your zip code is number one predictor of your health outcomes. And when you have children that are born in high areas of concentrated poverty, their health outcomes are not going to be as positive as children that are in the wealthier communities. Not because there's anything inherently flawed with those children, it's just the environment that they're in. Your high areas of concentrated poverty, that's where you have a lot of your gun violence. You may have schools that are not at the same level, lack of access to fresh foods, just all the things, right? So I know that I was blessed in not being born in one of those communities. I don't feel guilty about it. This is not anything to be embarrassed about, but it is incumbent on me to help. And that is where I see almost like there's a sentiment of people who have more privilege almost kind of being angry at those who don't. And it's like, when you're blessed with more, it is incumbent on you to help those that were not blessed with more. And that is really the spirit and intent of that parable. And there's another scripture in the Bible. I don't know if I think it is in the New Testament, where it says, you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free. Well, we have to start speaking truth. If we want freedom and liberation, we have to speak truth. We cannot expect a system that is grounded in lies, for example, that some children are more deserving than others. Some parents are more deserving than others. That's not true, because we all have equal value. So I'm right there with you, Kevin, even though I'm not a terribly religious person, really, because of what I've seen, what I currently see being done in the name of religion, in the name of Christianity. I do believe if we truly follow the teachings of Jesus, we would be looking out for the widows and the orphans, those that are the most vulnerable. And Jesus actually says we should be more like children so we can inherit the kingdom of heaven. There's a lot of lessons that we can learn from children, right? Even, we have adults in power that act like kids, but I'm not talking about that.
And Michelle's got a bunch of kids that hang around her, and they're genuinely pretty honest, aren't they, Michelle?
Ridiculously. Sometimes I'm like, hey, there's a better way to maybe say that or not say it at all. But it's natural. It's just that way. They're just being, and their circumstances and their surroundings is the number one thing to shut them down. That affects their identity. So when you have these kids that not only go through it once, but twice and 3 times, whether they can go back and find their parents or whatever they have that fulfills that hole that was once created, it will never be the same. And also, to Betch, I have to bring this up because I have family. My aunt, bless her heart, she was allowed to just start springing them out like little rabbits. And next thing we knew, it was like, this is not working. It's crowded. It's toxic. It's not the kids' fault, and they think it's their fault. And so naturally, they have their mind and they say their speech, but then throughout time, the parents not even knowing they're the ones who are affecting the identity in the first place, and then to be ripped away from them as the original parents. Like, did you see that struggle even if you with your son and just his friends and other things that was just like, who am I and why am I doing this at such an early age?
Yeah, with my son, he was with his birth mom. She was in foster care herself. And he was with her until the age of 3. And then he was with his foster mom until the age of 7. So as a 7-year-old, he got a new mother, which is a lot. I mean, the things that he has had to grapple with by this system that claims to be protecting children. I mean, he should be focusing on reading and phonics and playing, and he's dealing with the sad reality of family not being forever. Like, I was born to my mom and dad. The good, the bad, the ugly is what it is, right? I never consciously say, oh, this is my mom, right? And it's just whether or not my parents had 9 of us, we have preachers, we have people like me that's very unlike a preacher and all the things. It doesn't matter. They're still my mom and dad. I've never had a doubt about whether or not they would stop being my mom and dad. But think about a 7-year-old I met him on his 7th birthday. And then I winded up, our adoption was finalized in November. So he just turned 8 in April. But I'm having to convince him, and he has been testing me because he's checking to see whether or not this is real. But your family is your family, right? And it's like we identify with each other. Like, we talk about the Stewart forehead, the Stewart attitude. The little kids that are being brought up in our family, they look around and they see themselves in us, the traits. And even if you have someone that maybe have a recessive gene, somebody's going to say, oh, your great granddad looked like that. There's some connection, right? Yeah. These children who are raised by strangers don't have that. They may look around and they're the only person that looks like them in that environment. That is just not natural. When we look at nature in the way that God could have created all of us to look the same. He created us differently. We have different cultures. We have different skin tones. We have different ethnicities. And throughout nature, the animals gravitate toward their own, right? It's like, you see the little ducks, you gotta know, okay, those little baby ducks belong to the mama duck. And it's like, that's what it is. What we're doing is really unnatural, and it doesn't fall in line with that. Now, to your point about the parents that are struggling, The sad reality is we have generations. I mean, we look at Black Americans and the impact that chattel slavery has had generation after generation. We are still dealing with the impacts of that, right? You also have our areas of high concentrated poverty that have various forms of family separation, whether it's through the mass incarceration system, whether it's through child welfare, through juvenile justice. So I'm not naive to suggest that we could just disappear this system and all parents are equipped. There are many parents that are not equipped because they are products of the system as well. We don't track how many parents that lose custody of their children. We don't know how many of those were in foster care themselves, or how many of them had a parent that was incarcerated. But anecdotally, we know that if you have not had a stable childhood, the likelihood of you being a successful parent, right? You're going to struggle with certain things. You know, children will push your buttons. You have a child.
Well, they've never seen what it's like to be in a successful relationship with a parent, because all they know. We were talking with a guy yesterday. And Rochelle actually ended up crying. She has such a big heart because he said that one of the kids that had come to him had been in 83 different foster homes. You cannot build security, you cannot build trust, you cannot build anything when people in the night are taking, okay, grab a pillowcase, put your stuff in it, and we're gonna take you to another place. Doesn't know where the bathroom is, we may not have had dinner, and he's got to deal with that. We need to take our break, but when we come, I'm with you, because but far be it from me, we need to change more. We need to change the educational system, how it works, because poor neighborhoods have poor schools because they have no resources and they have no money. That's not a problem for that. That is a problem that we all should be addressing. And incarceration, we have got so many people. We incarcerate the highest per capita percentage in the world, including communist China and other places. And 25% of the foster kids that age out of the system have a high school diploma. 75% don't. And so a lot of them end up in the criminal justice system, which if we could avoid doing that, we could save a lot of money putting people in prison, and maybe we'd have money there to take care of them and the people. So Genet and Stewart is with us, and we're going to take this quick halftime break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about this, because I think the system is broken, but we got a lot of stuff that's broken around here that plays into it all. And so, and by the way, thank you for being here. You are a dynamic individual, and I really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And we'll be right back for this. And Rochelle's, when she's done coughing, will show up. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin, and Genet Stewart is with us, and Rochelle even knows her first name. So, Rochelle, if somebody wants to get a hold of Genet, how do they do it on her website?
Yes. Well, it is Genet, so nice try.
Sorry.
But it is Tewabech Genet Stewart. Go to her website, which is her name. It is Tewabech, and then Genet, which is GENET.com. I'm so glad that you made that, and your name is so special. So it's like, how could you ever not know that website?
Indeed. And by the way, we have a gentleman from Kenya that would like to say hello. And we want to introduce to you Samuel. So, Rochelle, go ahead.
Hi, Samuel. He says, hello, Merry Christmas, Team Positive Talk radio show. Host, brother Kevin, sister Brishelle, and inspirational guest, Tewabech Genet. We are here watching you live from Kiberia Restoring Hope Center based in Kiberia slums. Thanks for hosting, Madam Tewabech. We learn a lot from her about child welfare and programs. And I have to tell you that Samuel is in Kenya. He feeds 370 children and their parents every Saturday. On a humanitarian project that he came from the slums, and it takes that person. If you don't come from something hard enough and big enough from yourself, then maybe it's hard to know what to do. But I have to tell you that it is crazy in my life, even some of the friends and family and people that I've met who've been in the system are some of the most amazing people known to men. And as humans, we want to judge that. But we look at our own parents and we look at ourselves and maybe think, we had the circumstances to not go through that, and how can we help it? And I have to ask you before we move forward, is there any ways that you've figured out from the 5-year-old perspective in ways that we can be helping the parents just on a general level with things, let alone housing and food? Because a lot of times, like my own family, even if it were better for CPS to come in and know, hey, these kids need help. They need therapy. They need attention. They need identity. They need help. It's worse when there's so many of them and they're already in their teenage years and then they get ripped apart. Really, all that was needed is the parents to have what they needed to be able to guide the child and help them correctly. Does any of that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. And before I answer your question, I do want to say to Samuel that my mother is Ethiopian. So my name, Tewabech Genet, I'm named after my grandmother. So we are neighbors, and I'm hoping to go and visit Ethiopia in 2026. I'm hoping. So I'll be taking that long plane ride over to Ethiopia. But
we'll keep our fingers crossed. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
You can do that.
Yeah. Well, I want to take my son there. He's not traveled outside. Well, we did go on a cruise. So that was his first time leaving the country, but I definitely want him to visit Africa and definitely Ethiopia. I left his first name the same, but his middle name is after the Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. His middle name is Selassie Makonnen. So definitely want him to be more connected to the culture. But I'm really excited that there's some fellow East Africans on the call. So Rochelle, we could do a whole show to talk about that. But short answer to the question, we as systems, we need to do a better job of listening to what families need. What happens oftentimes is that we come in and we impose what we believe a family needs or what a parent needs. One of the mistakes in child welfare is they focus a lot on the child and not as much on the parent. But one of the best things that you could do for a child is to give the parent what they need so the parent can be a better parent, right? So it's like, we have like different performance measures here in Florida. And, we're always, we have to see the child every month. And I want to say when they were monitoring the contact with the birth parent, it was like a 60% or 65% rate that you needed to see the birth parent every month. It's almost kind of like the birth parent, in some of the meetings that we're in, you would think the children just fell from the sky and didn't even have parents. Like, we talk about foster parents, we talk about adoptive parents, we talk about the child. But really, the focus should be the parent. If we focus more on the parent and we actually listened to what parents feel are beneficial. And this is where some of the, where we treat people differently, right? So most of us that are on the system side, or those of us who are not from the population that's overly policed and overly surveilled, we exercise choice. We don't have many. When I think about things right now, I chose where I lived. I choose my job. I mean, there may be something. If I go to the doctor and I don't like what the doctor says, I mean, well, I'll get a second opinion. There's not much that we are actually force-fed and required to do. But now think about the parents that are in these communities that are overly policed and overly surveilled. They have people coming in, whether it's from a nonprofit, whether it's from a system, saying this is what I believe you need, or they may be mandated to take certain tasks or certain classes, whether or not they believe the classes are beneficial, right? So that we have to restore the dignity of choice. Now, understanding not all parents have even been given that opportunity to choose. I was doing a podcast a couple months ago, and I was talking to an attorney, and she asked a mom who had lost custody of her kids what she wanted. And afterwards, the mom said, no one has ever asked me what I want. So we can't just assume that if we were to give everybody the dignity of choice, people would even know where to start, because some people have never been asked, what is it that you want? Is this what you want? You know, because if they refuse, they get punished, right?
Yep.
So some of it, you know, if you look at the for-profit industry, there is an inherent benefit to meeting the needs of your consumer if you want to stay in business. If I go to an establishment and I don't believe that I've gotten what I paid for, I won't go back. Now, think about systems, think about nonprofits. There's a disconnect structurally, there's a disconnect between how you get paid and the experience of the consumer. So you can continue to get paid and not meet the needs of the consumer, right? Yep. Because the consumer is not the one. So and you think about, okay, well, people who are recruited to serve on nonprofit boards, many are recruited based on fundraising ability, their political connections to the community. And I'm not judging this. I understand. If I were an executive director of a nonprofit, I would want, you know, because you got to be able to keep your doors open. So you want someone who's going to bring in, you know, donors and all these things. But if that board is not connected to the needs of the community, you could find yourself in a situation where you are providing quote unquote services that people didn't even ask for, they don't want, it's not beneficial. But then we label, right? Instead of us looking back at, and this is where we have Luke, where it says to whom much is given, much is required. We blame the person who's on the other side of it instead of saying, wait a minute, why is the organization that has been getting millions of dollars, or the organization that's claiming that they're serving this family, why are they continuing to get this money even though the community conditions have not improved? Because I can tell you, I do not live in a diverse community. I am kind of out in the suburbs of Hillsborough County. But when you look at the red zones, your area of high concentrated poverty, overly saturated with nonprofits, churches, the helping. Like, you know, you won't see too many churches and nonprofits in my neighborhood, right? So there's a problem here, because we are continuing to put money and resources into communities. These communities, the results are showing these communities have not gotten better. If we listened to them instead of judging them or saying that we know better than they do, because that's really what it is, you know. And I can tell you, I adopted Leo a year or so ago. I can only imagine what a nightmare of a mom I would be if I birthed him, because can't nobody really tell me much about what he needs and what he doesn't need. I just met the kid about a year and a half ago, right? But I can only imagine, and I know, like, my sisters, and I have girlfriends that are like real mama bears. You can't tell them that you know better about what their child needs than they do. So So how dare we? And this is a hypocrisy. It's like, why do we impose onto other people what we would not tolerate for ourselves?
Mhm.
And this is where the inner work comes in, because it makes you challenge, what is your underlying belief about this other community, this other person? If you would not tolerate it for yourself, why do you believe this parent is deserving or this family is deserving? If we approached communities and families more from that lens and we listened to them, then what you're saying, Rochelle, it would address. But we have generations of harm. We have people that we have families that have been completely obliterated through mass incarceration, child welfare, and other systems of separation. It's going to take generations to heal. So my prayer is, I know we're not going to have a 100%, everything is equitable and great in my lifetime. But what I would love to see is for us to abolish the current systems, Kevin, because you're right. It's not just child welfare. What I see in child welfare is what we see in other systems
Everywhere.
where families can become stronger generation after generation. It won't be perfect after one generation, because we have families that have been impacted multiple generations. But if we can make the next generation a little stronger, then the generation after that a little stronger, then we will see some of the damage and the harm, we would see that get better. But if we continue to separate and we continue to tear apart, we're not going to get anything positive out of that.
Nope.
Right?
It's impossible.
It's impossible. There's no neutral energy. It's either positive or it's negative. It's either God or the devil. There's no such thing as neutral. So when we look at the values aligned with God, healing, love, restoration, justice, then we look at the devil, separation, harm, punishment, coercion. You're never going to get healing from separation, punishment. It's just not going to happen, right?
It just don't work. It's just not that way.
It can happen under no theory. You could keep banging your head against the wall and try to reform something. And I have said very loud and proud, you can't reform a lie. This is why
and our
welfare system cannot be reformed. You cannot reform a lie. Nothing good can come from evil.
Amen. And Tewabech, you just made me think of something that I've got to get out, but we have to take our last break first.
Oh, okay. All
right. So I'm going to let Kevin take us to that. I want everybody to know that they can go to your website at tewabechgenet.com. We'll go over that before we end out the show, but I cannot forget this thought. So let's do this commercial.
Great to hear it.
And this is for you, Genet. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A tiny seed was buried in the dirt, covered in darkness, forgotten by the world. But within that darkness, it grew roots, then sprouted into something beautiful. The seasons of struggle you face are not endings. They're beginnings. Trust that growth is happening, even when you cannot see it. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope live. And welcome back to the show, everybody. And I got to tell you, and I'm going to let Rochelle ask her question. But first, I just wanted to make a brief statement, because there's a lot of nonprofits, there's a lot of churches and stuff. But is it inherently, is it in their best interest to solve the problem and put themselves out of work? Just saying. So, Rochelle, go ahead.
Yes, well, that was a good point, Kevin. We'll have to touch on that because we're going to have you back. There's no way we can get out what we need to in this show. But what I'm thinking is the reason that this is so big and needs so much attention is because I know I'm not the only one. There's somebody out there that's screaming this and I can hear them. That's like, well, what if the child wants to leave? That is exactly why we need to work on the system, because we are creating something to where if a child at a point makes the decision for themselves, this is not what I want, this is not good for me, I or myself, my siblings, whoever it is, needs help and I can't do this, I need to go somewhere else, I need someone else. they should feel safe to make that decision and not be, well, I'm never going to see my parents again. I'm never going to see my cousins. I'm never going to see my siblings. They might hate me forever. Do you happen to agree with that?
Yeah, and I have talked to people that have said, I was happy that I was taken from my mom.
Yeah.
And my response to them is, I'm very sorry that there's a system that did not give your mom what she needed. Because unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with systems that, and to my point earlier, even some of the quote unquote services that we believe are beneficial, it's not really benefiting the recipient. So we judge them and say, oh, well, they're not getting better. But we don't look at the system. So yes, there are families where the parent has not dealt with their own trauma. The parent has challenges, right? So it's not like this Pollyanna, everyone is whole and everyone is healed and all this. And abolishing our current system, which is my prayer, there are families that are going to need a lot of work because of the harm that has been. Because if you think about your parents, when I think about my parents, right, they did the best that they knew how to do. That's all parents can do. Some parents are in a better position based on their own childhood and based on just, how much healing and growth. There's some that have not dealt with their unresolved challenges in childhood, right? So yes, there are children that believe they're unsafe. There are children that are unsafe with their parent. But as a system, how do we help that parent become a better parent, right? And how do we help strengthen the extended family in the event that the parent is just incapable? There are parents, for whatever reason, are just not capable of parenting their child because they have not dealt with the things that they needed to deal with in order to become an effective parent. But really, our role as government, our role as the system is to support that family, not to tear apart the family and pick a new family for the kid. Longitudinal studies have been done. We know what's happening for children. There are children that have been successful in spite of foster care. But the longitudinal studies show that children who spend years in foster care, when you look at, Kevin, you referenced their education, but the science supports keeping children safe and stable. If you are in fight, flight, or freeze, the cortisol is going to flood your frontal lobe. You are going to be incapable of learning. If you have a child that is not fed, they're living in a car, they're living because here in the Tampa Bay area, looking at the housing costs, we have more and more families that are living in vehicles, living in hotels, they're being evicted. Think about, how is that child capable of learning in the classroom, knowing that these are the stressors that are happening at home? Then if you take the kid from the family, the only family that they know, and put them in with a stranger, it's no surprise that children who are in foster care lag even further behind. And then when they don't know how to read, especially our Black boys, they start acting out because they don't want to say at the age of 12 or 13 or 14, I can't read, right? So then they start acting out in class or saying, I don't want to go to class. And that's where you get the foster care to prison pipeline. So it's almost like this is a feeder system. Whether you look at human trafficking, you look at prison, all of the things, foster care is a fertile ground for that, because just by design, pulling that child out, the child bouncing from place to place, where are they supposed to learn how to self-regulate? The tools that are needed in order to be an effective parent. You have to be able to regulate your own emotions so that you can teach your child how to do the same. But if you've never learned that skill set, how do we expect you to be an effective parent when children will trigger you? They'll push your buttons, you'll be sleep deprived, all those things, right? It's a challenge to be a parent, even when you are from a family where you have been bonded and attached to. But imagine that being disrupted, and imagine what additional challenges it poses for that parent that's dealing with a colicky baby, fussy baby, terrible twos, wonderful threes, and all the things that come along. I'm dealing with beautiful eights, whatever it's called. I'm still dealing with it with my son, but children will do that to you. And so that is why I think we just have to rethink all of these systems. I believe we would save money if we actually gave families what they needed. We would save a crap load of money. And
Well,
maybe
the mental framework of it would change, and so it would change the energy of it, which would it would solidify. There would be no going back. It's like once you learn something, you cannot unlearn it in that sense. But Tewabech, as we close out the show, we're running out of time. Has anybody told you to write a book, and have you thought about it?
I've thought about it. Yes, I've actually spoken to somebody a couple months ago. She's an accomplished author, and she was trying to teach me the ropes. I need to circle back with her.
I think you should.
Yes,
I
you
have high
do.
hopes for that.
Yes, you do. And I, as you were talking, I was just thinking to myself, fixing trauma is expensive. To hire a therapist and to work with people, it costs money. If you don't have any of that, you can't fix your trauma. It's very difficult to do. And so, I think that if we are actually going to be called a Christian nation, and if that's what we want to be, then we need to take care of every human being that we have here, regardless of what they will look like, regardless of who they love. None of that matters. What matters is that we are going to take care of everyone that's here. Make sure they have enough food, make sure they have enough shelter and stuff like that, rather than to say, because Genet, there are people that drive me crazy in this country that say, well, you know what? That's what they deserve because they decided they didn't want to work hard enough.
Oh, yeah. But what would a 5-year-old say? A 5-year-old would say, what in our current system, in order for you to get real quality therapy that actually helps, it requires you to have some type of resource. We believe not everyone deserves, right? You have to earn the right to have housing, healthcare, food, right? But the 5-year-old would say, wait a minute, if there's childhood trauma, it behooves it would behoove the 5-year-old say, well, why not help my mom with, maybe the abuse that she had or whatever it is. So that is where I believe, we have to start thinking about how children view the world. And we know major faiths talk about children being sacred, and we should be more like children. There's a reason for that. And if we as adults challenged ourselves to think more that way, we would actually have something that actually works for all of us, not just the children. It'd work for us too.
And that's amazing you say that, because to a child, their needs, we know as humans to survive, we need water, food, shelter, right? But to a child, they care about emotions, they care about thoughts, they are forming opinions, they ask what you just said, why not? Well, why not? And I think that if we can shift our society as our basic needs intertwining with our soul and our emotions and our mindset, then damn, I think everything just might change.
Absolutely.
And it's going to change because of people like you that are out there talking about it and not accepting the status quo as being, that's just the way it is. Because if everybody says, well, that's just the way it is, what will happen? Nothing.
And our systems will continue to become more and more overburdened, and we will continue to see more and more stress. So
we're going to turn that around.
Time. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to turn that around. And the way we can do it, people can go to your website, which is tewabechgenet.com. And we are running out of time. This always happens.
I know. We have to do this again soon.
I know. Yes, we'll do it again. Don't you worry, as soon as possible. But I want to give you the last minute or two just to share any ways people can get in touch with you and find information about you if it's not besides your website. And then any message that is on your heart to share us with before we leave for the day.
No, absolutely. I'm grateful for the opportunity. please check me out on my website. I have blogs. Don't judge me. I don't have a profession. This is something I just do like on my own time. So it's not the prettiest website out there. But yes, tewabechgenet.com. My email is tewabech.genet@gmail.com. You'll see that on the website. I would love to be able, if you're interested in hearing more about what I'm doing, I can make myself available for speaking engagements. I would love panelists. I would love to come out and talk and educate, but it is really my prayer and my desire that we transform these systems, get rid of what doesn't work, and let's do something that actually works. And let's think about more about what children challenge ourselves to follow the teachings of Jesus. Let's become more childlike. And that will help all of us and help the entire world to become a better place. And I'm just grateful. And I look forward to talking to you all soon.
And Ganetta, I don't know if you know this. I drove a bus for 12 years.
Yes, you did say that.
Yep. And what I found was there is a lack of hope. And that lack of hope is detrimental to all of us because these kids are going to grow up.
Yes.
And when they grow up and there's going to be trouble. And I want to extend this invitation to you because I think we'd have a great time. I do another show called Unscripted Politics with Dr. Shelley. She's got a book out and it's called Speaking of Race, Where We Live, Learn, and Earn. And I think you, her, I, and the token conservative guy will have a great conversation.
Sign me up. I'm in.
It's so good. It's so good. You would be just the star on top.
It would be you and Dr. Shelley would. I just wind you up and you guys go because there is so much that we need. I don't know if anybody knows this. I know we got to go, but this is 2025. And we're still stuck in stuff that we were doing 100 years ago. And it doesn't work. And it's proven that it doesn't work. And we've got to fix it. And not too old. It's going to be people like Rochelle who are going to end up fixing it because, and you're younger than me too, because it's important. It is why we are here, is to help each other and to recognize that we're all one.
Absolutely, yes.
We do
Perfect
that.
thing to think of with Christmas coming too, Kevin. So
yes,
I'm glad you said that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you take care of yourself and keep the fight going because
absolutely.
And you and Rochelle, I know you're not feeling great, but thank you for being here. You're amazing.
Feel better.
Thank you. And no, it's been an honor. I can't wait to have you back. And Merry Christmas, everybody, from Positive Talk. We love you absolutely so much. I hope that this message will stick with you and give you something to really think about going into the next year.
Absolutely.
And have a great day, everybody. My favorite day just passed, which is the winter solstice. Now the days are getting longer. There's hope. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.